So let's think about what the examiners are looking for when they grade your paper. Let's think about how to impress the IELTS examiner. We can do that by thinking about, as I mentioned before, the band descriptors. Now, what are the band descriptors? What does this mean? Well, the IELTS writing module, both Task 1 and Task 2, they are both assessed using something called band descriptors. And these band descriptors are divided into 4 categories. They are task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, and grammatical range and accuracy. Now, each of these categories is worth 25% of your score, so no category is worth more or less than any other, and together they will make up 100% of your score. And we're going to look at each of these categories in turn and thinking about the criteria which make up each of these categories. So let's start with task achievement. Task achievement. According to the official IELTS writing band descriptors, to achieve a band 7 and above in task 1 for the general training module, you must cover the requirements of the task, present a clear purpose with the tone consistent and appropriate, and clearly present and highlight bullet point directives. Now, the official writing band descriptors, they can be a little bit obscure in the language that they use for some people. They're kind of difficult to understand. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to translate them into a language which might be a little bit easier to follow. So let's think about that. In other words, write about everything that the task asks you to write about, and make sure you write at least 150 words, as that's part of the task requirements. Make the purpose of your letter absolutely clear and use an appropriate tone, appropriate voice. We'll be talking about that later if that's not too clear, throughout. Okay, so be consistent, use it throughout. Make sure your letter includes everything that the bullet points ask for. So nice and simple, just basically respond to the task as best you can. Thinking about coherence and cohesion now, according to those official band descriptors, we need to logically organize information and ideas. There should be a clear progression throughout. We need to use a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there might be some underuse or overuse. In other words, your letter should be in a logical order in terms of the ideas and the paragraphs and the sentences that you're putting forward. And your paragraphs should also be separated according to their content. There needs to be clear themes within each of the paragraphs. You also need to link sentences and paragraphs with particular linking words like however, therefore, furthermore. However, do note that this language can be different depending on the tone required. Furthermore, therefore, however, those can be a bit too formal for an informal letter. And that brings us quite neatly into lexical resource, thinking about language. So this is all about the vocabulary that you use. To achieve a band 7 and above, you must use a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow some flexibility and precision. Use less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation, and you may produce occasional errors in word choice, spelling, or word formation. What does this mean? Well, in other words, you need to show a wide range, a flexible range of vocabulary for your specific letter type. But you should also be precise. We need that precision. So don't be too vague. Words like good and nice can usually be replaced by something a little bit more precise. Use less common words and phrases. Lexical items, basically just words and phrases. And show that you know how these words fit together. This is about collocation, using words that fit together. You can make a few mistakes. Do bear that in mind. But do try your best, of course, to be accurate. But just don't break down and sob if you recognize that you've made 1 or 2 mistakes after the exam's over. It may still be okay. The final category is grammatical range and accuracy, so thinking about the grammar. And to achieve band 7 and above, here you must use a variety of complex structures. You must produce frequent error-free sentences and have good control of grammar and punctuation, but again, you may make a few errors. This is pretty simple, but in other words, use a range of sentence types and word orders, but don't hesitate to use some simple sentences too. there is still variety here, and it can be unnatural just to constantly use complex sentences, particularly if you're in an informal letter. So do bear that in mind. Avoid making mistakes in the majority of your sentences. Avoid making mistakes in more than 50%. If you wanted to score a band 8, you need to create a majority of error-free sentences. So anything above 50% actually gives you a halfway chance of scoring an 8 as well. And use commas, colons, capitalizations, etc. appropriately. Again, this may change depending on the tone. We'll be looking at punctuation later and seeing how your punctuation can change depending on the tone of the letter that you're writing. Okay, so a quick summary then of all of those criteria. Task achievement, coherence and cohesion, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy. These are your 4 categories, each worth 25% of your score, making up 100% as a whole. Task achievement, we need to cover all the task requirements, demonstrate a clear purpose, select and stay with an appropriate tone, and address and develop bullet point directives given to you by the task. For coherence and cohesion, we need to make sure we order our response, our ideas, etc. logically. We need to link ideas together with appropriate linking words, cohesive devices in other words. We need to use referencing to link content in different areas, and we need to paragraph sensibly. Make sure there are clear themes to our paragraphs and that they're separated clearly. For lexical resource, vocabulary, we need to show a wide range of vocabulary. We need to be precise as possible with our language, use less common phrases and words, and try to demonstrate our understanding of collocations. And we should try to aim for accurate spelling and word formation, even though we can get away with a couple of mistakes. Finally, with grammar, we need to show a range of grammatical constructions, both simple and complex. Don't make too many grammatical mistakes, but remember, it's okay to make 1 or 2. Punctuation, very important. Don't ignore it. Try to use it accurately and try to aim for a minimum of 50% sentence accuracy in terms of grammar. Now, each of these criteria we will be looking at during the course of this course. So as I mentioned before, each of the sections is divided into each of these categories. This is the best way to prepare you for this part of the exam, as you will know exactly what you need to do, what you need to demonstrate in order for the examiner to feel confident giving you a band 7 or maybe even above. So I'd recommend maybe screenshotting this page right now. You might want to put it as the background of your monitor or your laptop. That can be a nice way to just keep in mind exactly what you need to do. But don't worry too much, because we're going to look at each one of these points as we move forward, and we're going to do that straight away as we move into our section on task achievement.